remember, you've got the tailgate down. Don't go backing in too far. Looks about right there. All right, a little extra. All right, let's talk about today's project. You're probably wondering what's going on. It really came up during the live stream that I did in early part of January. And I was talking about this undersized cutting table. And I was cutting out some patterns the other day, and it's just really awkward here. This table is 4 foot by less than 2 foot. And then you roll out a height on it, you already know it's falling off both ends, or I'm rolling it up and trying to work my way down it. So I thought, you know, if I'm going to go through the effort to set up the shop and have the sewing machine and burnisher, in other words, if I'm going to spend the money to do that, I need to make somewhat, and I'm going to say somewhat, of a proper cutting table here. So I've purchased some plywood here, and then I wanted to make the table so that I could move it if I needed to. It's not going to be easy to move, but it is something that I can move, as opposed to building a framework out of 2x4s or 2x6s, which would be a better way probably to build this. But I think when we're done, we'll end up with a very workable surface. So that's what I'll be working on today. I'll take you along on the journey here, and I'll just let you go here a little bit, and then I'll probably do a little bit of talking as I go. But the first thing I need to do is I need to move these items out of the way to give me some room to work here. The bad thing about a bigger work surface is I have a habit of piling things anyway, so now I'll have a much bigger area to pile things, and then it'll be in the way. So but maybe I'll try to be a little bit more disciplined in that area. So the idea is to make something sturdy or stout enough, I should say, as a work surface. It'll mainly be used for cutting, but I may use it for some assembly. And I wanted something that had enough weight to it where it didn't easily move around. And then I wanted to make sure I was able to utilize the space underneath of the table well. Like I said, I considered doing a frame of wood, which would have been easy. I've done workbenches like that before, but I'm also worried about how big it is, and I wanted something that I could easily make smaller. If I need to, take out a table saw, cut off one end or down one side and move things in. So I've bought some of these modular, I think they're referred to as baker's rack, but some shelving that I will use as the foundation underneath the table. And then the tabletop, I wanted it to be something stout enough that it didn't bend and flex and such. So I've got 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood. One's finished nicer than the other one, which will be the top part of it. I think that'll give me a firm enough surface where it doesn't feel like it's all bowing and moving underneath of me. The other thing is, if I need this parking space, if I need to access it with a longer vehicle, then I can pull this top off, lean it against the wall, and move its support out of the way. And then If 5 years down the road I'm not doing leather work anymore, I'm always doing building, so I can utilize those 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood on another project, and it's like it never happened. So I'll probably pause it here. I've got 6 of these to build. I probably could have done 4, 1 or 2, 1 on each corner, 2 on each end, but I'm going to put 1 in between to make sure that it doesn't get a belly to it as well. So I'll be back here in just a little bit when I have the 6 of these shelves all built. All right, I'm going to pull the truck up so I can get the plywood off there easier. When I first started looking at doing this, I thought about getting a table that was 3 by 5. Well, that's only a foot bigger each way. It's still going to overhang. And so then I'm like, okay, 3 by 6. And then I settled on 3 by 7, but I thought, you know, I can't add that foot back on very easily. So what I'm going to do, 8 I think is, I mean, obviously I could use it, but it really starts to push the equipment and crowd the real purpose for a garage, and that's for vehicles. So I'm going to make this 4 by 7. I can cut a foot off the width pretty easily if later I decide it's too wide. So, and I've got a piece of just some, it's a decent plywood, but it's not finished nicely like the white one there is. So I'm going to put that on here first. Both sides of this plywood are finished about the same as far as sanded and holes and all of that. It's going to be covered up with the other plywood anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about it. And I can adjust these legs if I need to a little bit. I suspect that the floor is more true than this plywood is from being twisted. And I figured if it wants to walk, you know, like off of the racks, I can put some cleats in the corners to hold that aligned. I'm not overly concerned about that as well. And I thought I might go underneath in a couple places and put a screw through from the bottom into the top sheet, like a 1/4 inch, just to keep it from walking around and maybe keep it more stable on size. And I'm going to cut it to 7 foot long. I'll probably cut off the other end. So it gives me, I don't know, 3/4 inch plywood. You would think it's 3/4 inch. And if you've done any building, you know it's not. But that'll give me about 1.5 inches of surface on here that should be, I think, fairly stout. And if I need to stiffen it up some, I can run some 2x4s underneath here as runners on the bottom, and that'll give it more strength this way. Make sure that if I trim this at 1 foot, that I'm not running into shelving. I hate these. These are Phillips head. They sure don't do like the Torx bit, that's for sure. I don't think I need very many of these in here. The problem with getting it too wide, I can't reach over there, but it's mainly so I can roll out a hide here and get a good look at it anyway. You didn't see that. I figure while I'm making sawdust, I might as well go ahead and ease these edges around here a little bit. All right, wow, that's a big surface. But you know, a hide, a short one is 7 foot long. I've had some that are 9 and actually 10 feet long. So, but a lot of those I end up cutting part of it off you know, the shoulder and setting it somewhere else. So let me get cleaned up a little bit here. We'll move some of this equipment back, and then we'll see what you think. Well, there you go. We've got it in place now, and I've done a little bit of arranging here. I've got some shelves put in. Let's move you around over this other side so you can take a quick look at that. All right, here we go. It'll probably take a little bit of time for everything to find its place, but the tubs in the middle here are finished projects, and I've just brought a little bit of leather out here. I think it's a good place to maybe put partial rolls, especially items that, as far as leather goes, that I'm working on a regular basis. So I think it looks pretty good here. I purchased this new cutting mat here. This one is 3 foot by 4 foot. When I purchased this, originally I was going to do 3 foot wide. But I think that's okay, because really I just need to be able to support the leather when it's a full roll here. And then this is the 2 by 3 foot that I've been using for, I guess, about 4 years. So it gives me a good cutting surface here. This edge here, if I'm cutting this way, I line up there, that could be a little bit annoying. But I think really it's going to work pretty well. And now I don't need to get down on the floor when I'm stripping down a hide to cut belt straps off of it. I can lay it out here on the table. Let's roll one out on the table and see what it looks like. So here's a hide here. I don't have an uncut hide anywhere in stock right now. But this is the majority of the hide. I think I cut about 10 inches off this end here, squared that up, and I've been cutting straps off of this hide. So I think it's going to help get me off the floor, give me a nice workable surface here. I'm just going to have to be really disciplined about not piling it up with items. I have a tendency that when I get a few things here, maybe a project I'm working on, then I move around over here, and then, well, you already know how that works. So there you go. I think, well, I know it's better than what I had. I had a table that was 5 foot by 2 foot. And now I've got one that's 4 foot by 7 foot. So it's a huge improvement over what I had before. I think it'll work really well for my purposes. I've got a corner here I can use when I'm working with the skiver here. And I think that's really kind of handy to have instead of having to turn around. And so if I've got a pile of small items, I can put them here. The sewing machine over here, I think I'm going to leave it pushed back. I like this space here, and I've got area here on the right side that I can utilize when I'm working on the sewing machine. So yeah, I think that's going to work really nice. I've seen where people have the whole surface, with cutting mat on there. I looked at some of that, but I like the possibility of taking both of these with me when I go to the other shop. And if I had a 4x7 sheet, that would be difficult to do. So these two here, I can throw in the trailer here when it's time to pack up and relocate. So I know it may not be what works for everybody, but I think it's going to work really well for me and my purposes. And I guess time will tell, right? The biggest challenge I think I'll have is not cluttering the surface with other items, and I'll figure out what works best here. A lot of these small pieces I was keeping inside the trailer there, and I'd pull them out whenever I was using it, and then at times I'd forget about it. So now I've got these single shoulders here, smaller cuts left over from some of these rolls, and then I've got a bunch of whole hides. That's both sides. The problem with that, and this still isn't big enough for that, but it's a lot better than what I was trying to do on that 2 foot by 5 foot, is to try to get this, laid out to where I can work with it. This is a pretty good size hide. I've got a couple projects in mind that I'll be cutting into this, and I could cut it into a single side and use that, but there's still a lot of leather to use on this one. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've cut anything off of it other than a sample I sent to someone. to look at. But there's enough of it on the table to where it doesn't want to slide off and escape from me. So I've got a couple of projects in mind for this piece of leather. So I'll be excited to get that done. And so this is going to work out well here as well. All right, I've rambled on enough. Appreciate you being along today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I do hope you have a great day.